Hello, welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I am Iris. Welcome also to Virgo season. Welcome to Eclipse season. Happy solar return to all of our Virgo suns out there. I wanted to make a video that really is welcoming you to Virgo season because this is a very particular Virgo season. And really, there's one intention with this video. I wasn't planning on making a video today, to be perfectly honest. I was out on my walk and it became clear to me that I was making a video today because I would really like to talk about the Virgo archetype, specifically because this is a Virgo season to shed our own embodiments, individually and collectively, of the Virgo views that are drenched in power over ideologies, histories, traditions. And the reason I say that is this is a very powerful Virgo season. We literally start it with a new moon at 0 degrees. We end it with a partial solar eclipse new moon at the 29th degree. We have 2 eclipses in this Virgo season. And eclipse season is a time of shedding. It is a time of releasing so that, and here it's literally releasing the South Node in Virgo, those archetypes, so that we can more fully embody, whether we use the language of a higher frequency or a truer embodiment archetypally of the Pisces North Node energy. And so part of how that happens is also embodying the truer expression of Virgo that is not fear-based. And with this Virgo season, I invite you to reclaim your wild Virgo spirit so fully, so beautifully. And this is kind of what I wanted to chat about. Virgo is a sign that traditionally gets 2 descriptions. One, it's really, really clean and it's of service. It's the second, being of service, that I really want to open up a bit. You're probably hearing Finnegan as our choir. He's in the other room. He's always chatting. I apologize. And it's this idea of being of service. This is part of Virgo, okay? Virgo wants to be of service. It is a sign that is being of service. What I would like to trouble a little bit is what that word means to us. It is very difficult in Western cultures, in the histories, to use the word service and not have it come through unconsciously with patriarchal Christian heritages that complicate our relationship, and our embodiment of that word. And this is just the outcome of knowledge making. And the reason I say that is because service is a word that is very strong in the patriarchal and Christian heritage, which in the West is the heritage of knowledge making. And even those of us who might not align with it, who proclaim ourselves radical feminists, make a living doing that. It is, for folks that don't know, I'm also a professor. And so it's very difficult to actually extract, and it takes decades. It's a practice. For me, it's what the practice of embodied and evolutionary astrology really is about, and how we use it to extract ourselves from these ideologies and histories and embodiments of power over, and to live them in this beautiful, soul-called, goddess-driven way. And Virgo is this beautiful archetype that is here, and we're in Virgo season now, to sanctify experience in this plane. And yet, even that word sanctify has roots. And so the piece I want to trouble a bit is a lot of times the word service, especially when it is coming from that Christian patriarchal heritage, aligns with sacrifice, I sacrifice myself to be of service to this cause, to be of service to family, to be of service. And a lot of times, there's also a lot of ego-driven romanticizing of that service and sacrifice. But the truth is that if I'm sacrificing myself, my body and my mind are suffering on the day-to-day. I am not able to take care of myself. Now, the reason it's important to understand the history and the patriarchal lineage of that is because that sacrifice service comes directly out of Christian theology. And while there are so many, I know several of them, amazing leading feminist theologians who are working to, within the tradition, look at how the history of sacrifice and service have come out of a patriarchal silencing of violence. And this goes to the core of Christian theology. I'm not going to go, I also have a lot of theological studies behind me. It goes to the core of it. And what happens there is that there's a silencing of violence. There's a silencing of power over. There's a silencing of the structures of power that bring about the situation through which sacrifice needs to happen. If we live in a society that is truly structured by power with paradigms, that is not seeking to exploit humans, beings, or the earth, if we live in societies that do not drive us based on competitiveness and fear, but on love and collective care, we don't have the situations that require that type of sacrifice. And so there is a way of being of service that is in total alignment with my body, with the earth, with the rhythms of the day and the night, moment to moment, knowing the medicines, whether they literally are coming from earth or they are spiritual or both. And Virgo combines them. That isn't about sacrifice. That is extracting itself in an ongoing way from the ideologies of power that truly cause harm. And yes, that happens in the big collectives, which is when we use words like patriarchy and capitalism, and as they entwine within colonization. Those are the big macro levels, but they come into our embodied ways of life on the micro level, in our relationships, and how exhausted we are in having to care. And even, we're all going to have our own relationship with things like Christianity. Some folks are going to be practicing Christians and love astrology. Others are going to have left that tradition even though they were brought up in it. It's our own embodied practice. But what I'm talking about here is the history and the ideology that gets funneled into our own embodied ways. And Virgo gets talked about in terms of service in a way that often actually means sacrifice. And if we're viewing that through unconsciously a patriarchal Christian lens, it's problematic. And I have witnessed, quote unquote, top astrologers really unconsciously talk about service in this way. And so I invite you in this Virgo season, which begins with a Virgo new moon square Uranus conjunct Sedna, in conjunct Saturn, who's also been conjunct Neptune, and in conjunct Pluto. It begins, especially in that square to Uranus and Sedna. Sedna is teaching us collectively about wildly radical new ways of thinking and being human that absolutely do not perpetuate the violence that requires the type of sacrifice that was enforced upon her. I find that, I can speak for myself and most of the women that I've worked with in gender-based violence. We go into teaching because of what we've lived through so that others don't have to go through what we've gone through. Sedna becomes the Inuit goddess of the ocean. her teachings come into us in this contemporary moment when she has become such a part of our consciousness and now is a major part of this paradigm shift, so that we can radically alter how we think, communicate, form community. These are all Gemini. Learn, teach. And she squares this Virgo new moon in this major moment of eclipse season. And so what is it like to have a rewilding of service? A rewilding of Virgo witchy reclaiming? Because she's a healer, that Virgo witchy reclaiming energy. But she's not perfect at all. Because we don't come into this earthly plane to be perfect. We come to be real. And Virgo can be so real. But there's a big difference between perfection and being real. And that realness comes from the mind-body connection every moment. Being aware of surroundings, being aware of the ecosystem. What is it like to wildly engage? I mean, our first eclipse is the moon conjunct our Pisces North Node. Pisces brings us into wilderness. It's the wilderness of the soul. It's the wilderness of the divine mystery. It's a wilderness in which we let go and we are oneness. And it's wilderness. And it's beautiful. And it's messy. And Virgo creates structures not to contain the wildness, but to allow it to come into this plane, because Pisces is beyond this plane. And truly, Virgo is of service to that Piscean wilderness of psyche, of divine mystery. That is the service, archetypally. That's what it's of service to. And it gets confusing because Virgo is also part of the day-to-day habits and the day-to-day work that we do. And most of us are pretty strongly conditioned in ideas of what work is supposed to be and how it's supposed to happen. And in this respect, I do work with Virgo very much conditioned by the power structures of the time, because they tend to condition what we think wellness looks like in the day-to-day, what we think good work looks like, what we think being of service looks like. Yet when we extract these things from power over ideologies, from the histories of silencing, we reclaim a whole different way of being. And Virgo is about that way of being in our day-to-day embodied breath and life, and how we are of service to that Piscean realm. And this is a season to welcome it. To welcome the reclaiming, the rewilding, because it's that fixture on being perfect that gets in the way of living in the flow, of opening to the synchronicities, of truly just being carried by the flow. And it takes a lot of trust. And yet, with Pisces and that trust, we're not actually trusting something outside of us. We're trusting spirit that we embody. And Virgo can bring us into that, and it can be this fine tuning. But it's the grasping for control. It's the trying to understand. It's the making the perfect plan. There's a place for the plan, but there's also a place for letting the plan get wildly blown open and being directed on a different path. And this is an eclipse season where the South Node is in Virgo, so it wants to clear out the Virgo ways that come directly from power over ideologies. Because those power over ideologies were not about the collective. They were definitely not about the folks living in the margins. They were about keeping concentrated power and wealth with a few, and it's still working pretty damn good. And yet the outer planets are singing all new frequency harmonies coming together for us to embody. And Uranus and Sedna are square this first new moon in conjunct Saturn. Then at that second new moon, Saturn's opposite and we're in a trine. with Uranus and Sedna and Pluto. So we're being carried. You're being carried to let go of the places that grasp for control. And also, when we do align here, kind of our critical thinking to seeing how that grasping is something that was actually constructed. And it's not part of the new realities that are birthing. And it is being most likely, I ran into a friend today who was describing when universe just gets that broom and sweeps it out of our lives. And we have to surrender, right? And that's what eclipse season is. And it's also sometimes just showing us what's already here, but we couldn't see it because we were so focused on the crud that we were clinging to, which is usually in here. Or it brings those beautiful gifts into our life, right? Like that friend I was just talking to was brought in last eclipse season, right there. So it is, trust, letting go. We're entering a big moment. I know I've been saying that in my videos for 2025 because 2025 is a big moment, and it is a moment. It's a moment in the scheme of things, but it's also a lot, and it's a lot to be human. And may this Virgo season help you to redefine what the word service means to you in your life, and what it means to dance with that great mystery of the divine source, because that's what Virgo is about. And I'm gonna let you go now. Lots of love. Bye-bye.